Hey guys, welcome back to another episode. And today I have a special guest, really good friend of mine. And before we get started, this episode is sponsored by Monumental Heart Media. So if you've been thinking about starting a podcast and you live in the Phoenix area, hit us up. So with that being said, Philip, do you want to introduce yourself? Tell them a little bit about yourself and your business and what you do.
Yeah, for those who do not know me, my name is Philip Gonzalez. I am a commercial agent with MHG Commercial here in the Valley. I've been doing real estate for about 10 years, born and raised in Phoenix, dad of two beautiful girls. And yeah, really looking forward to doing the podcast with you.
Awesome, man. Can you tell me a little bit about how you transitioned into commercial real estate? Because I obviously we have history together. We did residential. We had a team at one point together.
Right.
And how did you transition going into commercial?
So it honestly was something that I think I had been talking about for years, just really looking at where I wanted to direct my career to because I wasn't a cold caller, I wasn't a door knocker, I wasn't doing mega open houses in residential. So I was never going to be that model in the
Yeah,
industry for the residential portion, but I knew I wanted to do something a little different. So commercial was probably something in my back pocket that I had been thinking about almost from the start. Like you said, we had the team years ago, and when all that kind of unfortunately did not work out, we
we had a
kind
bad breakup,
of we had a bad
but
breakup, but we're friends now.
yeah, it's true.
Then I thought about wanting to do commercial seriously in about 2020. I had the opportunity of selling a local restaurant that had been here for about 30 years with a commercial building attached to it. So I got my first taste of the commercial world and saw how things operated on that side and quickly found out for just a little bit more work and a little bit more time, it was something that I was willing to invest in.
That's amazing, man. And on the personal side, can you tell me a little bit about yourself? Like, what's one thing you love to do when you're not helping out clients?
Yeah. There's been a lot of big life changes in my life.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, right now, just really focusing on taking care of my daughters when
Mhm.
I'm with them and loving them and all that good stuff. Myself, I've been very active back in to physical health. Gosh, I want to say I'm down almost 30 pounds from last October. And as of the last 6 weeks, really starting to cut some of that body fat
Yeah, man,
out
you
that
look
I've.
you look good, man. You
Thank
look super
you.
lean, bro.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been boxing and off the camera here. I'm gonna be going with the shell to jiu-jitsu and hopefully not getting choked out by her.
That's
I
cool, man.
I think I'm really just gonna be pouring a lot into that physical fitness space.
That's amazing, bro. I know I definitely see your arms, your face looks a lot leaner. So good job, man.
Thank you.
And the last thing about that I'm going to ask you before we get into the serious questions. So if this is the first time someone gets to know what commercial real estate is, like what do you actually do? What are the benefits of working with a commercial agent?
There's a lot of benefits of working with a commercial agent or broker. There's a lot of knowledge there. There's a lot of steps that I think go unseen, like the residential portion, but it's a lot more intuitive to be working with someone who knows really what they're doing in a space. So I specialize more in office retail. I've done light industrial as well, but office retail. So if you're looking for your first space as a business for you and your company, or you're working out of your garage or your house and you need something just a little bit bigger for yourself, that's what we specialize in. I specialize in, but it's important because realistically, you're going to have a couple steps. You're going to have like letter of intents that need to be reviewed, that need to be redlined. You're going to have a lease. And some of those leases, man, they can get like 40, 50, 60 pages long. And the cool thing is, we have our own checklist of what needs to be checked off, but we always still recommend having legal look at it, whether you have an in house counsel or we recommend someone to you. So you want to have all those in place because you don't want to be signing a 5, 7, 10 year lease and realizing that what you're asking for isn't actually there.
Yeah. Okay. All right, man. So we're going to transition into what the show is about. Our ultimate goal is to inspire and talk about the reality of entrepreneurship. And it's not all the glamours. Obviously, for you, you're a big fan of cars. You have what, like seven, eight cars?
Right now, 8
Yeah, eight
Cadillacs.
Cadillacs.
Yeah.
And people that don't know you personally or don't know how much work you put into to get there, all they see, dang, Philip bought another old school, and they just see the success. And I know you love traveling a lot, and what New York and Seattle,
All
I
over
think
the
it was like, yeah,
country.
you've been
Yeah.
all over it. So they just see that, but they don't see like what you went through to get there.
Yeah.
So with that being said, can you tell me about a time where you had to face one of your biggest challenges as an entrepreneur, and what did you do to overcome that?
What's funny, I'll just say it on camera. So we tried shooting this before,
Oh yeah, it's
and
true.
I think it was God given that I think it was the audio that wasn't
Yeah.
working last time
Mhm.
we were doing it, or it was just me. I don't know. I was out of it too that day. But right now, I'm probably facing the biggest challenge, I think, of my entrepreneurial life. I'm going through some personal stuff,
Yeah.
and it's really rocked my boat because I didn't realize until because you can go through something in business that will
Yeah.
definitely deflect you, but when there's something that's personal happening to you, it bleeds into your
Yeah, it
business
does.
life. And I think that's where a lot of people don't understand as entrepreneurs, if we're not working, we're not getting paid.
Oh yeah.
If you're working a W-2 or a 9 to 5 job, you could still technically show up
Yeah.
and you're still going to get a check in a
Yeah.
week or 2 weeks. As an entrepreneur, if something happens in your life and you just stop working,
So it's
your
done.
income
Yeah.
is pretty much over too. Right now, I think it's just working through understanding where you're at and what you're capable of doing while you're working through that situation. Because the reality of it is, if it's something that's a super hardship, of course, you're not gonna wanna have or have the energy to wanna do it,
Totally.
but it's really digging deep and understanding, like, hey, even if it's something small, like one phone call, one email, one text message for work, and you build off of that, I think that is what really starts to lay a new foundation and start laying those bricks for you to be able to push forward.
Being on that subject, my next question is pretty much regarding that. Like, how do you stay motivated? Because I know I'm one of like your best friends. Bitch, I better be your best friend. No, I'm just kidding. But overall, like I've been through it and I've been going through it without putting so much your stuff out there.
Yeah,
How do you stay motivated like during a difficult time? And what would you give other people out there, other entrepreneurs that like to stay motivated?
right. I think it really comes down to realistically, it's you for you, right? And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, you've been here for me. I've been there for you. We have our other friends that are there for us in situations, other entrepreneurs that can be there.
Yeah.
But realistically, like you have to go through it. And I think it's important to really understand that even though there's times where you want to stop and you want to just give up and fold shop, because outside of this situation, there's been a handful of other situations where I'm like, you know what? I'm done with real estate. I'm just going to go get a job,
Hmm.
or I'm done with living in Phoenix. I'm going to go move somewhere else and start a whole new life and all this stuff. And I think what it really comes down to is it being for you. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, no matter what we go through in life, is we design the life that we want. Like we talked about, I have a
Yeah.
handful of cars. I like to travel. I like to have fun. I like to be around good people, good energy. So it's designing the life that you ultimately want to live. Because at the end of it, whether you're with someone, you're not with someone, you have a great business, you don't have a great business right now, you have to do it for you. Because at the end of the day, it's really for you.
Yeah. Oh, and I could definitely relate to that. Obviously, we have that history of doing real estate. I'm still active occasionally. I take care of my clients, but overall, like this is the reality. Like
Mhm.
this is something creating the agency. We're doing social media management now,
Right.
and the fact that I'm creating a income out of something that I love to do and have fun. Number one, and we went to that networking event yesterday. What is it like? 70% of the time you were on your own. What I do with my hands, man.
Pretty much.
But I'm a social butterfly, dude.
Yeah.
And in a way, this is a way I'm connecting and networking with people.
Yeah.
And the hit me. I think I told you about it a couple days ago. Like, dang, dude, I get to get paid to create content.
Yeah.
Like how dope it is. If in 2009 when I started seeing like not podcasters, like YouTubers creating making money out of content, I didn't really think that was a real thing. I grew up in Maryville. At the time, there wasn't a lot of diversity, like people that looked like us that was making money and that was out there.
Right.
So I didn't think it was possible. But look at me, man, like 16-year-old Ben was like, oh shit, Ben, like you're doing it. Looking back, what's a mistake in your early stages of your entrepreneur journey? Thinking about that, what would you do and what would you do different and what did you learn from it?
Yeah. So I think there's different steps in our entrepreneurial journey that we have a little bit of regret, or why didn't we do this, or could we have pivoted that way? And I think now, as I'm getting a little bit older and looking at the scope of my work, so outside of real estate, I've been an entrepreneur for gosh, since I was probably 16, 17. I started a clothing brand. I ran a tire and wheel shop with a friend. And then it's just sparked into opportunities that we're going to be doing like my own insurance brokerage, which thankfully I did not get into that. No
Yeah.
knock on the insurance world. It's just super, super dry. So I couldn't do it. And then real estate. So like for probably the last 17, 18 years of my life, I've really been an entrepreneur. And there's been a lot of things along the way that I've made mistakes on. But I would say probably the biggest one, and even now as I'm getting older and starting to search for those, are like proper mentors. People who are where you are, where you want to be, and where they've been through that same path. It's like that old cliche saying, like, why do you got to reinvent the wheel?
Yeah.
And so there are certain steps like to your agency that you're building or to commercial real estate, or if you're out there selling tacos or t-shirts or whatever it is that you're doing out there. And I think really it's finding the right mentor. Now, here's my take on mentorship though. If you pay for it, great. If you really believe in the product and you believe that guy can take you from point A to point Z, or that girl can take you from point A to point Z, great. But I am really about organic mentorship.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because ultimately, really at the end of the day, it comes down to the relationship portion with people.
Yeah.
And if I'm paying someone X amount of money, I feel like it's transactional. And for me, that turns me into a transactional person on my business and then who I'm reaching and touching. Like I said, I'm not a door knocker guy. I was never a cold caller or any of that stuff. And I've had a really successful business by not doing those things. And I'm not
Yeah.
knocking any of that stuff. And I know a lot of people coach in that particular field, but we had the right mentor,
Yeah.
Michelle Mojica.
Yeah. Michelle.
Michelle and Juan, actually, we'll give Juan
Yeah.
some credit too, because
Yeah.
Juan's been there too. But it goes back to just finding the right mentor. And I think that is something that I made a mistake early on, whether it was selling the t-shirts, doing the insurance, and then very early on in the real estate is not finding the right mentor to direct me. Thankfully, I did find Michelle probably about a year into my business. And she's been the one that really trajected me forward.
Yeah. No, and also too, when it comes to life, like you're a man of faith, I'm a man of faith. Like I feel God uses people all the time,
Right.
and I feel right now one of my mentors and someone I look up to, and someone that's really helping me and supporting me with scaling the business, is Stephen Hilgard.
Yep.
And like I
What up,
I'm a,
Steven?
yeah, what's up, Steve? I feel blessed, dude. We connected years ago and we had this, I guess, like a far away friendship, but the last couple months, like we've been pretty tight. Like, we handle his social media management, and he's just an amazing friend and a mentor, dude. So I totally get where you're coming from, and surrounding yourself with people that want to grow and want to get to that next level is super important. Because one of the things, the reasons why I love connecting with you is because you dream big, and we can't there's a I can't remember if it was Steve Harvey said something along the lines of, you can't tell people that are small minded big dreams
Right.
because they're going to shut it down.
Right.
It's okay, and it could be limited beliefs, or they're just sticks, but it doesn't matter. But when I tell you things about what I want to accomplish, my dream, my vision, dude, like I know you could do it. The same
Right.
thing with you, and we encourage each other. So it's super super important, and also to having those people that encourage you and support your vision, and they're rooting for you. That's actually my next question. Can you tell me about a time where you wanted to give up on your business, and like how did you overcome that feeling?
Yeah. I think probably after our breakup,
Yeah.
I really considered like getting out of the industry
Yeah.
because 2016 I did really great my first year. 2017 I did really good, and then I think we started a link like late
Yeah.
2017. How long did that last? Was that like 2
Mhm.
years, a
Yeah, it
year
was
and a
a
half,
yeah, like
like into
two yeah.
2019?
Mhm.
Yeah. And when our partnership in that situation fell apart, I really sat back and was like, is real estate really what I want to do? Is this really what my life is called to
Yeah.
be, quote unquote? And I actually went to go work for Zillow for 6 weeks. I was a part of their Zillow offers program. It was like the open door, if
Yeah.
people are familiar with open door. It's the same sort of model, and it failed. But I quit after 6 weeks, but I went to that job as a pacifier because I was unsure if I wanted to do real estate anymore.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I had 2, 3 great years, and then it was just like, boom, our stuff ended, and it was like everything around me at that time was falling apart. But now it's funny. I look back. As soon as I quit the Zillow job, 2020, 2020, 21, and 22 were by far great years. Now we can obviously attribute that to the market and where it
Yeah.
was at, but it was still a hard market. COVID real estate was
It's either you blew up
or
or
you tanked.
yeah.
And so thankfully, and with God, like I said, we're men of faith. It's He really saw my heart, what I wanted to accomplish, and just it's my business just shot through the roof. And so at that moment though, I looked back and was like, wow, like I almost gave up my career, with the life I was designing, and thankfully I didn't.
So ultimately, what was your why? That you were like, boom, I'm coming back.
I had my first daughter in 2015. I had my second one in 2018. So she was fairly young. And being a dad, thinking about the girls, do I need health insurance? How am I going to cover this? How am I going to
Yeah.
cover that? Those were big whys. And then when I realized that I didn't want to work a 9 to 5 because it took me away from them, it took me, from seeing them whenever I wanted all day to basically 2 hours in the morning, maybe if I was lucky, to 2 hours at night if I was lucky.
Yeah.
I said no. I said I want to be there for them. I want to see them all the time when I can. Ultimately, those were the big whys. And it went back to those conversations that we had with Michelle in our own times. And it was like, design the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
My life wasn't set up for a cubicle
Yeah.
working for someone and seeing my kids just a couple hours a day. And
Yeah.
that drove me to push the business.
And one of the things that being your best friend, just kidding, but being your friend for years and watching your grow and your journey, dude. Like the last 2 years, you did blow up, and you have a lot of you're closing millions of dollars in transactions a year, and you are busy. But what's one thing? How do you find that balance, the perfect balance from your personal life with your business, and what are the strategies like for you to have that?
Great question. I think it comes down to a couple of things. So I used to think that business and personal were separate, and health was separate, and finances were separate, and family was separate. And what I've concluded is they're all intermingled, they're all touching at all times. So for me, it was like, okay, I did a Darren Hardy master course a few years ago, which I still keep in my back pocket to just remind myself when I'm going through something. And he talks about like time blocking
Yeah.
and big things like, okay, so if I'm going to be focused, particularly at work, I want to do 60 minutes, 90 minutes of straight work, and then I'm done. And
Hmm.
he does 2 sessions a day, and then all his work is done. And I was
Sure.
like, how can you do 2 hours worth of work and then
Yeah.
call it a day? There's like that book, The 4 Hour Work Week.
Yeah.
And so I really started to take note. Now, I'm not as calibrated or as structured as I'm going to set a timer for 60 minutes work and
Yeah.
then I'm done. But I noticed that I would work in sprints.
Yeah.
And that worked for me because it was like, okay, if I know I have a 10 o'clock appointment with my kids, then boom, I got it from 9 to 9:30 or from 8 to 9:30. I have to just flood as much work as I can. So that really started to give me the options of blocking how I wanted to put my house together: work, personal, health. But I realized, going back to what we were talking about in the beginning, like I've lost all this weight. Man, 30 pounds ago, certain things we're getting a little older
Yeah.
now. Certain things start malfunctioning in our
Yeah.
body, things start coming up. And I started to realize, and we hear this all the time, these really ultra successful guys, I don't know about the ladies out there, but the guys like overweight, they don't take
Yeah.
care of themselves, they have heart attacks, strokes, like in their 50s, now 40s, are starting to hear that more and
Yeah.
more. And you and I, we're in our mid 30s now. We always talk about this. Like the decisions we're making now are going to affect us 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah.
So I was like, cut back all the booze.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I like to have a drink or two here and there, but not waking up with a hangover and recovering
Yeah.
for a week. Really focusing on my health, so my health can then lead me to work right. So then my work can lead me into having family time. So my family time can then lead me into the right finances. They're all intermingled, but taking care of all of them how they should.
Awesome, dude. Throughout your journey, man, like in the beginning, what's one thing looking back that you would say, like you would give advice to yourself?
I would say a few things. One would be not to be so hard on myself. And I feel like we tend to do that all the time,
Yeah.
whether we're being successful or if we're flatlining. We are so hard on ourselves. Two would be to allow yourself to heal from past things that may prevent you from future successes. And that goes with everything in life, not just work, that goes with family and relationships. Three would be to be more empathetic and sympathetic towards people. Unfortunately, for a long time, I would hear people going through things and be like, ah, that sucks. Or,
Mm.
oh man,
Yeah.
that shark meme, like, you
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
And going through my own stuff recently, it's really made me open my eyes of how cold I was towards that.
Yeah.
So those are probably the big three things that I would tell yourself.
Your past self. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, with that being said, I think one thing that really stood out to me was being hard on yourself. And I think everybody is, they have expectations of like how we're going to run this business or how we're going to do this and that. And we're so hard on ourselves that we don't allow ourselves to be flexible. And then once that happens, then you start dealing with anxiety. And then you're like, because you have expectations. And for me personally, I learned to be flexible. I'm learning and I'm catching myself. For example, with this whole podcast, like ultimately my goal was to film one a week, and I'm going to be on that schedule, and then I'm going to post 2 times a week. But then I started thinking about, okay, what if I meet someone interesting, you know, or someone that I could develop a relationship, and what's going to happen then? But I was like almost consulting myself. No, we have a schedule, we have this, and it was giving me anxiety. And I ended up talking to Michelle about that, and she was like, dude, you're in charge. It's almost like that movie, was it Hustle and Flow? So I was like, I'm in charge. I'm like, yeah, I'm in charge. I get to do everything. I'm like, this is my company. Yeah. And once I allowed myself to be flexible, like I have more peace. Stephen, one of the quotes that I love about that he said regarding that kind of situation is don't change your goal, but be flexible with your approach. And I think that's literally I don't know, the mantra I'm living by. And I'm like, be flexible, dude. To wrap this up, man, can you share some words of maybe hope or inspiration for the viewers, man?
Yes. If you are going through tough times right now, tough times don't last. Tough people do. You just got to get through it. And even if you're crawling at -1 mile an hour, you just gotta keep moving forward. Ultimately, that's what really matters in life. Is we're all going to face hardships. We're all going to face situations in our life that are super tough. We're all going to face business ventures that fail. We're all going to face business partnerships that fail, like you and I. But look at us. What was that hot take? So what's that YouTube? Is look at us.
Look at us. Look at us. Oh, yeah, the hot ones. Yeah. Look at us
Look
right
at
here.
us. That's us, man.
Yeah.
You're doing phenomenal in this space, and you're only growing. And last night I got to see a little bit of more insight of how big this is going to continue to grow.
I'm excited, man.
And then on the flip side, you're seeing me, like I got some really big stuff that I can't divulge, but really big stuff on the commercial space that I'm working
I'm
with.
excited for you, man.
So like I said, you got to just get through it, because at the end of the day, there's no quit, and you cannot make a permanent decision on temporary feelings.
Amen. All right, man. So if people are interested in doing business, they need to lease a space for their next venture. What's your call to action? How could people find you, man?
So simple. I'm on Facebook, Philip Gonzalez, 2 L's, S at the end of Gonzalez. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm under Cadillac_Phil there, or just shoot me a text, call 480-540-3911.
Awesome. I appreciate you stopping by, man. And remember, guys, we're going to be posting every Friday. That's going to be our ultimate goal, but occasionally we're going to have bonus episodes. Follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and we're ready. We're going to be killing it. So thank you again, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.